Imagine being physically chained to a complete stranger for 30 days. You eat together, sleep in the same room, and cannot take the handcuffs off. The incentive to endure this? $250,000. This diagram illustrates the catch at the end of the month. One person gets the power to decide how the money is handled. They can choose to split the prize, walking away with a perfectly fair $125,000 each, or they can choose to steal the entire sum, leaving their partner with zero. In your daily life, trust is a slow burn. It's built over years of reliable interactions. But when you lock two people in a room with $250,000, the brain is forced to compress that process into a psychological speed run. That is the situation facing Allison. Over the course of a month, she is handcuffed to 5 different strangers in increasingly stressful environments, from a tiny house to a simulated plane crash. Her only job is to figure out which one of them is actually trustworthy. Building a bond this quickly isn't just a byproduct of spending time together. It involves the deployment of specific behavioral strategies designed to manufacture a sense of safety. By looking at how these strategies work in a controlled environment, we can learn to distinguish between a manufactured connection and real trust. The challenge begins in a comfortable house. For the first 10 days, Allison is chained to Bryce and Skylar. They spend their time laughing and playing games, focusing on low-stakes banter to establish an easy rapport. This is where we see the first strategy, mirroring. When Allison and Skylar talk about ice cream, Skylar mentions she only likes mint chocolate chip when it's green. Allison immediately agrees. By matching these small, trivial preferences, Skylar is signaling that she and Allison are pet from the same cloth. This chart shows the logic behind this behavior. Mirroring relies on a basic psychological comfort. We are naturally less suspicious of people who seem to share our traits. Repeating small details back to a target acts as a shortcut to rapport, making a stranger feel like a longtime friend. But mirroring is difficult to maintain because it requires constant mental effort. When the physical stress of being chained up increases, Skylar's focus wavers. She accidentally mentions the $250,000 prize amount, revealing that while she was acting like a partner, her mind was actually fixated on the full steal payout. This slip shows the limitation of mirroring. It can manufacture a fast friendship, but because it's a performative strategy, it often crumbles when a person runs out of mental energy to keep up the act. On day 10, the environment becomes much more difficult. Allison is moved to a cramped grocery store and chained to Juan. Unlike the previous strangers, Juan doesn't rely on playful banter or shared hobbies to get close to her. He immediately moves to a deeper level of communication. Juan opens up about his family and his 6 children, explaining exactly why he needs the money. He isn't trying to be Allison's friend. He's showing her his real-world obligations. This unprompted honesty creates a reciprocal effect. Allison responds by sharing her own struggle, the fact that her father was recently diagnosed with dementia. This is mutual vulnerability. When someone reveals their personal stakes and emotional weaknesses, it triggers a powerful reciprocal response. By showing Allison his soft spots, Juan makes it much harder for her to view him as a threat or a competitor. Unlike mirroring, which is a performance of similarities, shared vulnerability is a performance of truth. It bypasses superficial judgment and creates a bond based on shared moral weight, making it a far more reliable tool for building trust. By the final days, the pressure is at its peak. Allison is now living in a crashed airplane, evaluating her last 2 strangers, Bree and Jason. Bree uses the strategy of absolute commitment. She tells Allison repeatedly that she will not steal the money, pointing to her promise tattoo to emphasize she never breaks her word. She's creating a verbal contract, leaving no room for doubt. Compare that to Jason, the cowboy. When Allison asks him directly if he would split the money, his casual charm disappears. He hesitates and gives a qualified answer, saying, "As of right now, I would." In a high-stakes environment, the brain scans for total certainty. When Jason uses a qualifier like "as of right now," he signals that his decision could change. By refusing to give a definitive answer, he leaves a gap in his story that Allison's intuition quickly fills with doubt. In a survival scenario, ambiguity is dangerous. Without the finality of an absolute, unambiguous verbal commitment, A bond cannot be fully solidified. Day 30 arrives. Allison stands before all 5 strangers she was chained to throughout the month. She has to make one final choice: eliminate the person she trusts the least. To make her decision, she looks past the early charm of Skylar and the emotional weight of Juan's story. She focuses entirely on how each person behaved when the money was discussed directly. Her reasoning for eliminating Jason is based on his failure to commit. He was the only person who couldn't give her a straight answer about the prize, and in her mind, that hesitation outweighed everything else. Allison's deduction was correct. When Jason's decision is revealed, we see that stealing the $250,000 was his intention all along. By ignoring Jason's friendly persona and focusing on his specific refusal to make a verbal contract, Allison successfully identified the threat and protected her money. Outside of a reality show, the stakes might be different, but the mechanics of trust remain the same. Real connection depends on the consistency between what people say, how they act under pressure, and their willingness to be vulnerable.